So Senator Sanders was on CBS this morning yesterday, and shockingly, although Joe Biden has yet to get one question about the allegations Tara Reade has leveled against him, Bernie Sanders gets a question about it. Before Joe Biden ever did, let's take a listen.
One of your most important allies, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, said recently that she thinks it's legitimate and relevant to talk about sexual assault allegations against Joe Biden. Do you agree?
I think it's relevant and to talk about anything. And I think any woman who feels that she was assaulted has every right in the world to stand up and make her claims.
Do you think that should weigh significantly in the mind of...
I think that she has the right to make her claims and get a public hearing, and the public will make their own conclusions about it. And I just don't know enough about it to comment further.
So AOC has gotten asked about it.
Yes.
Bernie Sanders has gotten asked about it, but Joe Biden has not gotten.
He has not. And look, these my friends, my friend Brent Scher over at the Washington Free Beacon, he compiled this. 3 weeks, this is as of yesterday, 10 interviews, 81 questions to Joe Biden. You can actually add 11 interviews, given the disastrous one that we played today on the show from CNN, and not a single question has asked him about this allegation, which has now been written about is a for courteous term, which has been covered up in the New York Times, in the Washington Post, in every other major news media organization. This is the most blatant cover-up I have honestly ever seen, and it is so shameful that Bernie is basically a Biden surrogate now.
Right.
Is getting asked about this. AOC is getting asked about this. Both of them say it's legitimate. Okay, so is it time to ask him yet? Which one of you guys is going to step up?
But it tells you everything about the way that the news media works. Because why don't they ask him? Because they don't want their access cut off.
No, they're going to get kicked out of the pool, or they'll never get called on again. They know that. They all know it.
They'll never get the next interview. Right. Next time it'll go to somebody else. It won't be Anderson Cooper. They'll go to a different hour on CNN, or they won't go there at all. I mean, that's the reality, is they don't want to lose their access. So they sit there and they serve them up softballs, and they never ask about a credible allegation of sexual assault against the presumptive Democratic nominee. It's unbelievable. I mean, you could never imagine the same courtesy being given to any candidate that they didn't like, any candidate on whose, job and access they did not depend.
Let me tell you something. I was once in the East Room about a crowd behind people. Literally, there were hundreds of people in front of us. And one of the journalists in front, I think this was a bunch of veterans groups, or it was it was something religious or military. I remember it being a sacred event, if you will.
Yeah.
Screamed about Stormy Daniels at Donald Trump. They have no problem doing that at that moment.
Yeah.
Right? And yet they have plenty of opportunities doing it with Biden. They're not going to ask him a single thing.
Not one question.
I even remember them shouting at Trump whenever he was with his wife, with Melania at one point. They don't care whenever it's somebody else that they hate. But whenever it's Biden, they completely cover it up. It just completely demonstrates they're afraid. They don't want to get cut off.
And you know what? I prefer that more aggressive approach.
Yeah, no, exactly. I don't think that's a bad thing.
They're supposed to be adversarial.
Yes.
Like, these are not supposed to be your friends and your buddies. It is supposed to be contentious and adversarial. That is the whole nature of
It's
the
the
press.
Selective adversarial, which is the problem. Because it's like, I've seen it so many times. I watch these same people act like real journalists with the Trump administration, hostile, right? And look, sometimes they make fools out of themselves, quite often. But whenever it comes to Biden, I mean, the Nicole Wallace thing.
It's perfect. Yes.
It's disgusting. I mean, it's just so
she's
fawning.
Smiling and nodding and fawning and hoping that he gets through it, and trying to help him get through it, asking him the most softball questions. I mean, it says everything, too, that the piece that was in the New York Times, which we covered here, which Ben Smith famously now questioned Dean Baquet about, because there were so many outrageous sort of approaches and choices that were made in that piece. But one of them was in a piece that is ostensibly about this credible allegation against Joe Biden. They throw in a paragraph about, just so you remember, Donald Trump has these allegations, and they go much further, and remember Stormy Daniels and all of this. And that's all true, and that deserves coverage. But how is that relevant to this allegation against Joe Biden? It was just so clearly put in there to go, look, we don't think that this happened. But even if it did, remember the other guy's worse.
Exactly.
Well, look, let the American people make that decision. I mean, I thought Bernie handled that perfectly fine, saying, look, the allegations should be heard and people can make up their own minds, because at this point, you do have two, choices that I find completely unappealing and abhorrent, in my view. And you have to weigh those like lesser of two evil situations. So let the American people weigh that out. But don't put it in the piece. Deal with the story at hand. Deal with it in a fair manner, in the same way that you would approach a Donald Trump or a Brett Kavanaugh or another story. And that's the thing.
It's totally legitimate to do a lesser of two evils calculations. Americans do this every day.
All the time.
When they vote, whenever they make friends, all this. I mean, whenever they deal with things in their personal life. There's nothing wrong with that, but just say it. Treat it obvious, or treat it both with the same fairness. And then, if you don't believe somebody, or if you want to say, I believe, but I don't care, that's okay. You can say that. You really can.
Who do you think is going to be the first one to ask Joe?
When's it
going to happen?
The problem is there's no gaggles anymore, so the Biden campaign has total control. If it used to be, Fox News would have asked. If Peter Doocy at Fox News, the only person ever asked about Hunter, only person to ask about that, might have asked him. Another great reporter is Bo Erickson over at CBS. I want to give him a shout out because Biden, I think, has called him a pain in the ass. He is a great reporter, and you know what? Maybe we're counting on you, Bo. Everybody tweet at him and ask him. He'll be mad that I shot.
But that is it. They have total control.
Yeah.
He's not, obviously, for obvious reasons, not going on in public. So you don't have any sort of like those freeform situations where an enterprising reporter can get after him. They get to handpick who they know will be friendly to go and sit down with. And so that's what you get. Bernie Sanders gets asked about it, and AOC gets asked about it, but not Joe Biden. We'll have more Rising for you after this.